Howdy, howdy, howdy. I am Stephen Grenade, and welcome to Let's Play Interactive Fiction. I am a physicist and a writer of both traditional and interactive fiction, and I figured in this time of pandemic, let's try getting together and playing a text adventure. So this will be sort of an analog version of Twitch plays in some ways. So we're going to be playing a text adventure where you interact with the game by typing in commands, and then it responds to you with, unsurprisingly, text. Glad to see several of you out there. Hello, Bug Gwen. Always lovely to see you. We're going to be playing Fragile Shells, which is a short text adventure in which you are in a busted space station and have to escape to get safely to Earth. It's a short game that I wrote about 10 years or so ago. There was a JIS Games website for casual games, and they held a game design and writing competition specifically for interactive fiction, and the theme was escape rooms, because that was when the online flash escape rooms were a big thing and folks loved doing that. And I was like, I don't think I've got any good ideas for that, and so of course, like a day later, I had an idea for it. I picked it because it's a fairly straightforward game. It has hints that are available. It's one I wrote, so hopefully we'll be able to solve it, since I'm not the best at text adventures, despite having written text adventures. So we'll see how that goes. And then finally, if I make fun of it, only younger Stephen gets their feelings hurt. So with that, let's see about starting up. Fragile Shells, an interactive escape. Also, since I wrote this about 10 years or so ago, we'll see how much of it I remember. It's going to be very interesting, I think. So, I'll be reading through it. I'll type in commands, suggest things that you'd like me to do, or what you think needs to happen next. You don't know how long you've been hammering against the station's wall, but you stop as soon as you realize what you've been doing. You let your gloved hands fall by your sides and pause, confused. Starting out with amnesia, always a good adventure game trope. As I recall, I leaned really heavily into all of those tropes. So, suggestions about what to do next. While y'all are thinking about that, I'll start by taking a look around. Something took out the fluorescence, so the only light comes from your helmet's forward spot. Since you're facing the wall, you twist your neck and look around frantically, your spotlight dancing across the remains of Node 4, before you realize what a bad idea moving your head fast is. What happened? Other than someone taking a cricket bat to the back of your head before starting on the station. You'd been piloting? Moving the station? But why wasn't Suze doing that? You're the backup pilot, for Crippen's sake. Oh, younger Stephen, inventing a science swear already. I'm so good at this. Younger Stephen, what were you thinking? So, the suggestion to take a look at me. You're in full kit, suited up against the vacuum. All right, so let's look again. You take a more calm survey of your surroundings this time. You're in Node 4, the cylindrical science module. Some of the walls and bulkheads have buckled, and parts of the module are now floating free or have otherwise been shoved to where they shouldn't be. You just know as soon as the news reaches Earth that the net will light up with cries of how much taxpayer money went out the airlock. You're pinned near the starboard wall by some wreckage. Since you're facing the wall, you've got a good view of the supplemental lighting switch that's at chest height. Seems like the supplemental lighting switch is something we'll take a look at. The suggestion to take an inventory. You're wearing a flex spacesuit. Turn on the light. Turn on light. Oh, thank goodness. The supplemental LED lights begin to glow all along the station. The lights reveal details like the prize bar jammed into a nearby screen and how the entire aft end of Node 4 is gone, ripped away like the end of a tube of biscuits. You had strapped yourself into the sleeping rack and closed its door, hoping it would provide protection, expecting that it wouldn't, and there was a flash of light visible through the edges of the sleeping rack's door, and your head cracked against the wall. You pause until a sudden wave of dizziness passes. I like how I have continued this trope in my writing of being overwhelmed by a flashback. This has shown up in a couple of different things. It's very interesting to see younger Stephen's tics continuing forward into present Stephen as well. All right, there is the prize bar, so we can take a look at that. Prize bar. The prize bar is a completely straight piece of metal, the length of your arm, and made of some light alloy because of the cost to bring things into orbit. Both ends are flattened and are the width of 3 of your fingers. The prize bar only sees occasional use thanks to Newton's third. And I was really leaning heavily into the science here and Newton's third law. Suggestions of what to do at this point. Take bar. Yes, that sounds good. Get bar. You pull the prize bar free from the screen, and if I check my inventory, I am carrying a prize bar and wearing a flex spacesuit. I didn't actually look at the spacesuit. Let's take a look at that. Your suit is a standard issue flex spacesuit, not a hard shell thankfully, which means no radiation concerns. It has the usual handy extras, a pouch for storing small items, and D-rings for tethers. One of the things I do remember about writing this game is that dealing with what goes in the pouch versus in your hand and what you can clip to the tether took up a tremendous amount of programming time. I don't recommend complex inventories like that. All right, so we've got a bar, we've got a flex suit. I'll do what I usually do when I don't know what to do next, and I will take a look. You're still trapped facing the starboard wall, so you can't see whether the escape pod is attached to the port side of Node 4 or not. 4, you can see the hatch to the station exterior is dogged shut. Looking aft, you can't see the remaining 3/4 of Node 4 since it seems to have gone missing. So we're in an open to space, ripped open space tube, in effect. X pouch, if I could spell it. A small snap pouch for holding sundries. I happen to know as the writer that since it's not saying that there's anything in there, that there shouldn't be anything in there, but let's check it anyway. Open pouch, no need. You've long trained to open the pouch only long enough to put something in or take something out of it. So it will tell us when we take things and put them in the pouch and when we have them available. So I am trapped. Let's see if I can go somewhere. 4. The hatch is dogged shut. Aft. You push off against the wall only to be pulled up short when one of your legs doesn't go with you. It's pinned. As I recall, there was some wreckage. So let's take a look at the wreckage. You're trapped by 2 struts that bowed out of the floor when whatever happened. It looks like you wedged your foot in between them for purchase and got caught, though you can't remember doing that. The struts are covered in scratches and dents as if somebody previously attacked it with a heavy object. Thoughts about what to do next? While I take a sip of water. This always happens to me when I'm teaching as well. I just get completely dry. All right. Oh, I should probably not hit my mic. That's one of the first rules of Streaming Club is don't hit your mic. Pry the struts. Yes, pry struts. Let's see if I was... Aha! Pry struts with the prize bar. You slip one end of the prize bar between the struts holding you in place and apply pressure. You feel a vibration through your suit leg as the struts move apart until there's enough space that you slip your foot free, and our score has gone up by 1 point. We have 1 point out of 8. Well done, Stephen. Points. 1 point. We can see full score. Let's just look at that real quick. 1 point for freeing yourself from the struts. Good job, us. And up at the top of the game window, I see we are now in Node 4, starboard. So let's take a look now that we're free. You're in the fore end of Node 4 by the starboard wall. Exercise equipment, like the stationary bicycle, is stored here, even though no one can use it while many of the node's science experiments are ongoing. From here, the sleeping racks are aft, near where Node 4 now ends, and the escape pod is to port. The hatch to the station exterior is 4. All right. Where to next? What should we do? I'm going to risk the water again. We'll see how that works. I feel like I should get like a gerbil sippy thing to hold right here. All right. While y'all are thinking, let's take a look at the bike. Oh, pry hatch with bar. Let's definitely try that. Pry hatch with bar. You aren't able to budge the hatch. What if I just try to open it? You tug and tug, but can't undog the hatch. When Node 4 was damaged, the hatch must have warped enough to be permanently jammed in place. All right, so that's a no-go, but there is an escape pod to port. There's also a bicycle here. Let's take a look at that. This space bicycle doesn't look that much like a regular bicycle. It's a gray trapezoidal box held together by about 20 screws. Pedals stick out of it, and attached above it is a seat with very little cushioning. Next to the seat is a water line that you've sipped from many times before while exercising. Now I'm wondering if I was remembering the water line when I was asking for a gerbil sippy thing. All right, thoughts about what to do next? Let's try, well, we can go to the port since there's an escape pod that way. Oh, check water line and see if it's working. That's a good idea. So let's look at the water line. A flexible water line. Somebody's left their nozzle on the line post-exercise. A sanitary no-no. Probably Quentin. You'll have to scold him, assuming he's still alive. What happens if I try to drink from it? Not while you're wearing a helmet. Okay, good point. I had forgotten that. I like the comment from Cinderella in chat. No, don't drink the water. So the helmet saved me from doing something gross with someone else's water nozzle. I remember looking up that that's how astronauts, when they would exercise, that they really would have little gerbil sippy water lines and the nozzle so that you could suck on it and not have little globules of water float around everywhere. +1 for helmet. Perhaps a +1 helmet. That's later D&D game, I guess. All right, I'm going to go to the port to take a look at the escape pod, since that seems like, oh, let's ride a bike before I go. That's a good idea. Thank you. Ride bike. Riding the bicycle would be 1.5 feet. Even a flex suit doesn't give you enough range of motion, and your survival backpack would get in the way. You can turn the pedals, though, which you do. So we've got pedals that can turn. We've got a water line with a nozzle. Let's look at that backpack. I forgot I had that. You can't really see it, but you know it's back there providing oxygen and scrubbing carbon dioxide. That seems like a good thing for space. Let's go to the port now and take a look. Node 4, port. Thank goodness the escape pod is still here. The converted Prede-Piate craft is port of here, its door is closed, and debris is wedged in front of it. The door is flanked by a dark display screen on one side and the door's control panel on the other. The exercise equipment is to starboard, and the science experiments are aft, closer to the new jagged edge of Node 4. Embedded sideways in a wall is a closed compartment attached to a jagged piece of metal. I do remember looking up and talking to some friends to try to decide what I was going to call the spacecraft, because Prede-Piate, roughly speaking in Russian, is Enterprise. So that's the level of the jokes I'm operating with here. Let's take a look at that compartment. It's a box roughly 30 centimeters on a side with a rough of jagged metal that was ripped from an equipment rack. The whole thing is embedded sideways in a wall, which makes you glad you weren't hit by it when it came whizzing through the station. The compartment has a featureless door that is closed. Well, I have definitely done enough text adventures to know when you have a closed door, you try to open it. Oh, this is the escape pod door. Yeah, we'll try prying the door right after this. You push the door's button with one gloved finger, but nothing happens. The escape pod door is supposed to automatically open in the event main power fails, but something's clearly gone wrong. You spend a moment cursing stupid turn-of-the-century NASA engineers with their hipster sideburns and their iPods, since that's better than giving in to panic. Just because NASA's old ISS equipment was available at fire sale prices doesn't mean it was a true bargain. So clearly nothing good has happened with NASA in the intervening years before this happened. Pry door. With the prize bar, you aren't able to judge the door. Look for, yes, definitely want to look for hipster sideburns. You can't see any such thing. Well, that's fair. I guess it's just memory. Let's see if I can open that compartment. Ideally, I would have programmed this so that if I said open the door, since the compartment has a door, it would be a little smoother, but I take what I can get from my 10-year-old game. Let's try actually spelling that properly. Open compartment. You scrabble at it with gloved fingers with no success. The only way to open it is electronically. This compartment used to be with the others next to the experiments aft of here. With any luck, you'll find the button that opens the compartment there. So just like a real escape room, we're slowly accumulating random items that we're going to have to figure out how to combine and do stuff to. So we've got the bike, we've got the this compartment, we've got the closed escape pod that we want to get into. So yes, as suggested by Campbell, aft. While some of the space station's science experiments are still here, many of them vanished along with the rest of Node 4. The port wall is filled with racks of equipment and inset storage compartments. The damage is extensive near the aft ragged edges where the station now ends. From here, the escape pod is 4 and the sleeping racks are starboard. The floor underneath you has a large crack in it. You carefully bring yourself to a stop before you reach the open end of the station. For one vertiginous moment, you feel as if the remains of the station are above you and you are falling inexorably to your death. So I do remember when I was designing this, wondering if I should put in a time limit and then sort of doing the Batman meme slap on myself, because time limits in games like this really frustrate me and I decided not to do that. Bug Gwen, dang it, I totally heard that as insect storage compartments rather than inset. There's probably in one of them some insects or maybe spiders that they were dosing to see what kind of zero-G webs they would spin. That seems to be a popular thing that happens. Sorry to have gotten you excited for no good reason. All right, let's look at the crack. Yes, good idea. I will do that. Plates in the floor have cracked open, revealing the station's underlying structure. Deep down, you can see a length of chain. Again, having played text adventures, I know, take anything that is not nailed down like a murder hobo, so let's get the chain. You gingerly reach between the broken floor plates, trying to pick up the length of chain, but it is about a meter down and you'd likely tear your suit on the edges of the crack trying to get it this way. So we have a chain in the crack. It is too far down to reach. We're going to have to figure out a way to reach it, which means we probably need to find more stuff. That is always the answer in escape rooms, is keep looking for more stuff. We've got the racks of equipment. How long is the bar? Yeah, it should be like a crowbar, a prize bar, so we'll try with that here in a second. X-racks. All of the experiments are in 19-inch racks, complete with protruding handles that are bolted into the wall. The racks, not the handles. There's a comma there I didn't pause on. The experiments often meant one thing: tedious checklists. You had to follow extensive checklists and write down the results at every step in a logbook because typing information into a computer would be too easy. It was so tedious that you made Quentin do it for you whenever possible. The logbooks were stored in nearby storage compartments. You got in the habit of writing all kinds of notes on the logbooks just because they were handy. Next to the storage compartments is a button that opens the compartment you saw near the escape pod. There's our button. Through the open end of Node 4, you see the Earth roll into view, throwing the jagged edge of the station into stark relief and revealing an external battery on the outside of the station. While you watch the Earth vanish again, the very expensive programs in your head start estimating orbits and trajectories. You're slowly spiraling away from Earth while the cylinder of Node 4 spins about its fore aft axis. That's a lot of information. I probably should have broken that up a little more. But we know that there are racks, there are logbooks somewhere stored in nearby storage compartments. There is the button. There is a space battery outside. Oh yeah, so the question about programs in my head. I think the intent was that you've got some sort of computerized thing, sort of like a computer implanted in your head that in your case will compute trajectories and similar for you. One of the things that I still have a bad habit of is not explaining a lot of stuff on the page and just throwing stuff at you. I think that was one of those. Let's see if we can get the chain with the bar. You're able to reach the chain with the prize bar, but there's no way to then hook the chain on the straight flat bar. Oh, that's right. I described it as having flat edges. So the chain will let us reach it, but we need a hook or some solvent or something sticky to do that. I wonder what happens if I do X programs. If I examine the programs, does that do it? As the backup pilot, your head is stuffed full of all kinds of programs that can calculate things like thrust based on what you see and feel, then dump the answers right into short-term memory. Getting those programs in there involved a lot of money, not yours, thankfully. I assume that would be the worst kind of student loans. And delicate surgery. Come to think of it, the docs warned you that the surgery could make any neural trauma much worse. A+, space doctors. All right, let's try pushing the button. This is the button that should open the compartment next to the escape pod. There's a gas line in front of the button, which you brush aside to push and hold the button. The compartment near the escape pod swings open, so you keep holding the button. Let's look at that compartment. X compartment. The embedded compartment that is near the escape pod. Thank you, program. It's a box roughly 30 centimeters on a side. Description. The compartment has a featureless door that is open. Inside you can see a logbook. Well, clearly we need to get logbook. The logbook is too far away. I will try to go there. Before you leave, you have to let go of the button, making the compartment near the escape pod swing closed. So unless I'm going to be able to stretch out really wide, I'm going to have to find some way to hold the button down. All right. So we've got a chain that we can't get to because it's too deep in the crack. We can reach it with the prise bar, but there's no way to make it stick on there. There is the compartment with the button, but they are separated too far. There is the bicycle. Let's see. The escape pod. Oh, the sleeping racks are starboard. Yes, sounds like we need tape. So we definitely do. Let's explore some more. Can we go aft? Without a tether, you'd spiral off into space. The escape pod's a better choice for escaping. It may be an old Russian Pripyat spacecraft converted on the cheap, but you're more likely to survive re-entry in it than in your spacesuit. That seems fair. Okay, so if we go starboard, Node 4 aft starboard. There used to be 4 sleeping racks here, small coffin-like soundproof booths where you could have a little bit of privacy. Now there's just one left. Its doors closed. The other 3 racks must have been ripped away when the accident happened. The station ends aft of here in a ring of jagged, twisted metal. All right, so the only thing I see in the description that's of interest is the sleeping rack. So let's examine rack. The remaining sleeping rack is barely big enough for a person. Its door is closed. Open rack. You open the door and a body falls towards you. Right, deep breaths. It's just an empty spacesuit. All right, well, something new. Let's examine that spacesuit. The empty spacesuit. The empty spacesuit is just like yours, except it has Susan Harrison stenciled on it. It also has the screwdriver you've used for EVA repair mission strapped to it. Wrestling with the empty suit, desperately pushing it into the sleeping rack, wishing the lights hadn't gone off after the explosion, not sure why, but knowing you have to get the damn thing inside. For a moment, you struggle with panic, borrowed from a poorly remembered past. Well, again, pick up everything that's not nailed down, so let's get the screwdriver. Yep. You remove the screwdriver from the spacesuit and hold it in your gloved hand. You spent countless hours on EVAs using screwdrivers just like this one, sweating in a spacesuit like the one you're wearing for up to 8 hours. You had no idea those EVAs would end up being good practice for your current situation. Ooh, I spelled it the British way. Oh, that's right, I did say cricket bat. Our character is British. You clip the screwdriver to one of your suit's D-rings to make it easier to carry. Let's look at that screwdriver. A low-torque powered screwdriver with a grip that's specially designed to be used while you're wearing these ham-hand gloves. It's clipped to your spacesuit. And in fact, if I take inventory, you're carrying a prize bar and you're wearing a flex spacesuit. Clipped to your suit is a screwdriver. All right. We shouldn't be able to go aft from here. Yep, because you'd have to have a tether. See if there's anything else here. Empty spacesuit. I will take another look at the spacesuit. Nothing on it anymore. All right. So we have a screwdriver. We have a bunch of experiments. We have an exercise bike. We have a compartment that we can't open unless we hold down a button. The bike has screws. Okay. That's 4 from here. You're in the 4 end of node 4. Stationary bicycle is here. X bicycle. It's a gray trapezoidal box held together by about 20 screws. It's probably a great idea to unscrew screws in 0G. Let's try that. Unscrew screws. You unclip the screwdriver and painstakingly remove all the screws holding the bicycle's trapezoidal box together. You let them all float away, might as well given the rest of the debris that fills the station. Bad astronaut. And fold open the bike. Inside, the bicycle is mainly a single small wheel about the size of your gloved hand with fingers stretched wide. So, the small wheel has holes all along its perimeter. The bike's pedals are attached to either side of the wheel and stick out a long distance compared to the small wheel. So we've got pedals on either side of the wheel, and then that small wheel with holes all along its perimeter. Thinking about what to do next. Let's go make sure there's nothing else here that we can see. Oh, there's the water line. Right, water line nozzle. Okay. Let's go back to port and look at everything there. Closed door, a dark display screen. The screen should be lit up like a lit screen, but it isn't. Even though the main power's out, the screen and door should have switched over to auxiliary power. And we did not look at the control panel. The door is controlled by a button mounted on a panel that is secured by four screws. Hey, let's unscrew that. When all you have is a screwdriver, everything needs to be unscrewed. You unclip the screwdriver and in short order have the 4 screws out. You let them drift away to join the rest of the junk while you gently pull the panel away from the bulkhead. With any luck, you can fix what's wrong with the button. Behind the panel is a mass of wires held in place by a stick pad. Let us look at those wires. Oh, good grief, there are 10 wires. Red, black, white, green, gray, blue, yellow, orange, violet, and white and red striped. I can't believe I put in this giant wire puzzle. This is the most escape room thing ever. They've got quick disconnects, so you can yank them out of the panel easily. All of the wires are connected to the panel. Stuck to the mass of wires is a stick pad. The enormity of the task in front of you, the unlikelihood of your escaping, nearly paralyzes you. You take a few deep breaths to steady yourself. I probably shouldn't have used the word enormity, since that has different connotations. Younger Stephen, write better. Take stick pad, yes. Let's look at that stick pad for a moment. It's a square pad about the width of 3 of your fingers. It's made of some super Velcro substance the Boffins came up with. It's lightly tacky on both sides and sticks to most any surface. The pad is stuck to the mass of wires. Patricia always used one to secure her pins. Dogging the hatch and looking through the porthole to see Patricia on the other side snap a salute, even though she's never liked your dual astronaut and military roles, but she must have felt it was the most appropriate goodbye gesture she could make. Well, that's comforting. Get stick pad. You remove the stick pad from the mass of wires and put it in your pouch. So indeed, you're carrying a prize bar and you're wearing a flex spacesuit. You have a stick pad stored in your suit pouch. Clipped to your suit is a screwdriver. All right. What now? Collect screws. Let's see. Get screws. You can't see any such thing. So I probably made them all float away so I wouldn't have to deal with them hanging around and trying to do stuff with them. Other thoughts? Real quick, I don't remember if there are any special commands. Let's see. Nope. Explore, read carefully, be creative, cooperate, ask for a hint. Sure. I couldn't remember if there was anything special. All right. Our memory's coming back. I think, yes, we're getting some of those. Oh, hey! I wondered if I had done this, and I did. Who? You can mainly think about the other space station crew members. Who? Patricia. It should be who is, but I think I can... Let's see. Who is Patricia? Dr. Patricia Morrison has authored numerous definitive papers on the effect of long-term space travel and weightlessness in space. You haven't had a chance to see what kind of hands-on doctor she is, but after today, you'll hopefully get your chance. That passage about Patricia. So who else? We had Quentin. Who is Quentin? I misspelled it. Quintin, maybe? Yes, Mission Specialist Quentin Davies, Warrant Officer and all-around skilled technician. His PhD is in physics. Yay! Which means everyone made him deal with the station's plumbing and constant electrical problems. And we had Susan, right? Susan like that? Yes. Susan's the mission commander. You've known Captain Harrison for years, having served together on 3 separate missions, one of which will remain redacted for a long time to come. All right. So some of our memories are coming back. We know about Patricia, Quentin, and Susan. We have a prize bar, a stick pad, a screwdriver. We've got a escape pod we can't get into. We've got a mass of wires that we're going to have to figure out something to do with. We've got a... let's see, what else have we got? We've got the chain and the crack. We've got the bicycle and the water bottle. We've got the experiments. So let's go, let's see. I think we have looked at everything here. So we've looked at the door, the screen, the control panel. We opened the control panel. Stick pad on bar and take, let's see. X pad, X bar. Square pad about the width of 3 of your fingers. The prise bar, both ends are flattened with the width of 3 of your fingers. Well done, younger Stephen, hinting like that. Put pad on bar. You stick the stick pad to the prise bar. That's a thing. Let's go get the chain now. Ooh, so I can go south to go aft. I can go north to go fore. I can go east to go starboard. I can go west to go port. I'm going to do that because I am lazy and don't want to type a lot. All right, get chain with bar. With the stick pad on the end of the bar, you're able to snag the chain and pull it out from under the floor, even though the chain doesn't really want to stick to the pad. You coil the chain and attach it to one of your suit's D-rings. Your score has just gone up by 1 point. Yay, compass directions. Yes. One of the benefits of having written this 10 years ago is I have forgotten a tremendous amount about it. Like, I remember bits and pieces and some of the things that I put in there, stuff that really sticks out to me, but there's a lot of it that I am rediscovering as we go. So that's kind of fun. All right, we have a new thing we can do stuff with, and that is the chain. So we have a length of chain, we have a screwdriver, we have the prise bar, we have the stick pad. All right, let's make sure we've looked at everything here. Station science experiments. All of the experiments are 19-inch racks. We looked through all of that. Next to the storage compartments is a button that opens the compartment you saw near the escape pod. And let's look at that button. So we pressed that. You have to hold it. Oh, dangling in front of the button is a gas line. That's new. A simple momentary contact button that some bright spark at NASA thought was an appropriate control to open the compartment you saw near the escape pod. Whoever designed that stupid button and compartment is probably in his 70s now, which means you might be able to look him up and punch him if you get back to Earth and can obtain a visa for the NUS. Yes, tedious checklist is an accurate description of science. I agree with Bug Gwyn. X gas line. A nitrogen feed line for one of the experiments is in front of the button. It's a metal hard line that has an L-shaped bend right in front of the compartment button, with the threaded end of the line pointing away from the button. Partway up the line is the valve that controls nitrogen flow. The valve is closed. All right, so let me think through that. Nitrogen feed line. All right, so it's a hard line. It's a literal piece of metal that goes down and bends into an L. The threaded end of the line points away from the button. So we've got new things to play with. What would you like to do with them? That also gives me a chance to drink some water and keep my voice going. Well, I am going to take a look at the valve. It routes back to the gas line, so it's all one piece. Let's try open valve. You open the valve on the gas line. Nitrogen begins flowing slowly out of the end of the line, causing the L bend in the gas line to press gently against the button, but not hard enough to push the button. Let's close that valve. You close the valve on the gas line. The cloud of nitrogen quickly disperses. Ooh, let's look at that cloud. Let's open valve. X cloud. It's actually flecks of solid nitrogen that quickly sublimate away. Close valve. All right, so if we can find a way to increase the force of the gas coming out of the gas line, then the L bend will press against the button and hold it open. So now we've got to figure out how to do that. Any thoughts or guesses while I take a look around and make sure we've examined everything? Let's double check the crack. Nothing in there. Stick something in the mouth of the gas line. Let's see what we've got. Put screwdriver in gas line. That can't contain things. Can I put it on gas line? The screwdriver doesn't fit on the gas line. Now we reach the inevitable part of playing adventure games where you start trying random things and discover that you can't actually do that. All right, let's look at the gas line again. Threaded end of the line. Threaded end? All right, so we can treat it all as one item. The gas line, the threaded end, and the valve, since they're all having the same description, I know that means that I treat them as a single object that we can work in. So if we could find, I wonder if put stick pad on line. You stick the stick pad and the prize bar to the gas line. Get bar. You remove the prize bar from the stick pad and take it. I do remember having to code up sticking something to something else and spending a whole long time trying to make that happen, and then dealing with all of the side cases of sticking one thing to another that you could do with this stick pad. What happens if I put line on button? You stick the single button and the gas line together with the stick pad. Turn on valve. Still not hard enough. Yes, as Campbell says, it is like the tying problem. If you have a rope, you can tie it to most anything, and then that becomes a thing. I was probably willing to do this puzzle in this environment because it is pretty sharply limited about the objects that you have available. Hey, Jim, welcome. Fun emoji. So let's take stock again. We have an open gas line that can press a button if we can get more gas coming out of it. We have a stick pad, which right now is sticking the button that opens a compartment to the gas line. We have, if I check my inventory, the prize bar, a length of chain, a screwdriver. All right, let's make sure that we've looked at everything again. I'm used to Twitch emotes, so I expect a few of them. Excellent. I'm here for those. So we've looked at the door, we've looked at the display screen, the control panel has all of the wires that we're going to have to figure out something to do at some point. Exercise equipment is to the starboard, and the science experiments are aft. So here's where I'm going to see what happens if I say hint. If you find the temptation to use hints overwhelming, no, I don't want to disable hints. Don't tell me that. I can't get that closed compartment open. How do I get the debris out of the way? Can I go outside through the open end of the station? So that gives us some hints about things that we can be working on. Let's look at getting that. The compartment has a button. Yes, we figured that. You've undoubtedly noticed you have to press and hold. Yes. Since you can't hold the button down and reach it at the same time, something else. Yes. Like that gas line. Yes. It won't press hard enough. The nozzle you found. Well, that's helpful. The nozzle, I think, was on the exercise line. Exercise bike. Sorry. Water line. That's what it was. Examine the water line. Flexible water line, someone's left their nozzle. Get nozzle. You twist the nozzle off the flexible water line and store it in your suit. So we now have in the pouch a little nozzle. So if we go aft towards, if we go port towards the escape pod and then aft where the experiments are, let's try put nozzle on line. You put the nozzle on the gas line. Let's examine the line. So there is now a valve. Let's get the stick pad, since I was just messing around with that. Turn valve to make the gas flow. You open the valve on the gas line, and nitrogen begins flowing quickly out of the end of the nozzle, causing the oil bin in the gas line to press firmly enough on the button to open the compartment near the escape pod. Unfortunately, the bin slips off of the button, and the compartment closes once more. Thoughts now? I think I accidentally got the next solution. Yeah, interesting how you split your hold all in my inventory into two different things. The fact that you have stuff in the stick pad and things clipped to it, plus what you're carrying. The source code for this game is available, and if you want to see just how much coding it takes to figure out what gets sorted into which pile of things, what goes into the pouch, what gets clipped, what gets held, there's a lot of code to make that happen. And I remember about 3 days before the deadline when I was going to submit this game to JA's Games, sweating over all of that code and cursing myself. But eventually it got to where it worked. All right, so thoughts about getting the compartment or getting the L-bend of the gas line to stick onto the button. I'll give you all a moment to think about that. also going to look at that chain while you're thinking. Several meters long, it's very similar to a bike chain. Both ends sport carabiners, small metal loops with a spring-loaded latch. One end of the chain is clipped to your suit. All right, so we have the prise bar for prying things open. We've got a stick pad for sticking things to each other. We have a length of chain, which is clipped to me and has another carabiner on the other side of it. And we have a screwdriver. Let's take a look again. Science experiments, racks of equipment, inset storage compartments. Did I look at the compartments? I can't remember if I did. X compartments. The compartments are like the open, doorless nooks you stored your backpack in at college. You've kept logbooks in the compartments, though all of them are now empty, denuded by the explosive decompression that ripped through Node 4 when 3/4 of it went missing. Near the storage compartments is the button that opens the other compartment near the escape pod. Yes. X experiments. I missed the gas line part. What happens when you turn the valve on? Turn valve. Oh, let's turn it back open. So nitrogen flows out because of the nozzle that we put on it. It's a hard line of copper and it's shaped like an L, and the L bend is now pressing on the button, but then it slips off to one side. So we've got to have a way to keep the L bend of the hard line stuck onto that button. I just realized that I'm going to have some kind of thinking music instead of the quiet music bed I've got right now. Stick. Let's see what happens. Let's see if I was smart enough to be able to do stick L bend to button. Nope. Oh, haha. That was clever of me. I'm able to guess that you want to use the stick pad to stick the line to the button. Good job, younger Steven. You stick the stick pad to the gas line. You stick the single button and gas line together with the stick pad. With the stick pad holding it in place, the gas line presses the button, causing the compartment near the escape pod to swing open. So now we have the compartment open to the fore or to the north of us. Rope tying puzzle solved. You solved my stick things to other things puzzle. Embedded sideways in a wall is an open compartment attached to a jagged piece of metal. Let's look at that compartment. Description of it. It has a featureless door that's open. Inside, you can see a logbook. Let's get that logbook. As you remove the logbook from the compartment, the door swings back shut. It looks like you had just enough nitrogen to get the job done. Huh. Funny that. Your score has gone up by 1 point. So we're up to 3 points, I think, out of 8. Nice. All right, let's take a look at that logbook. Like all of them, this logbook has all 4 of your names on the front in order of rank. Yes, it was convenient that the nitrogen went away, almost like I didn't want you to keep messing with it anymore. All 4 of your names on the front in order of rank: Susan Harrison, Simon Mayhill, Quentin Davies, and Patricia Morrison. It also has obsessive step-by-step instructions for running several of the on-station experiments and recording the results, because the space program is all about hiring the smartest, most capable people it can find, training them exhaustively, and then not trusting them to do their job. I don't actually espouse this view. Checklists are actually really good. There are lots of notes in the logbook's margins. Several of them are notes Quentin wrote when he made on-the-fly repairs to the station. One talks about the problems he'd had with the escape pod door malfunctioning and how he had to disconnect the door control and computer from backup power to fix the problem. He noted that disconnecting only the green and yellow wires and connecting the 2 current-carrying wires, the white and red wire, together would restore backup power. Normally, the white and red wire and the red wire would run to the power source. All right. Yes, several people are saying, let's find out who is Simon. Hello. Ha! Who is Simon? You've been piloting EELV-boosted spacecraft for nearly a decade. As a reward for doing such a good job, you got stuck on board the space station for months. We are Simon Mayhill. There we go! Amnesia solved. We solved my amnesia puzzle. I had actually forgotten that we were Simon, although it makes sense since we've seen information about Susan, Quentin, and Patricia, and it says there's 4 of us. All right. So there are notes about making on-the-fly repairs to the station. Progress of deduction, yes. So we've got notes, process, yes. Hey, we don't get a point for learning our name. I should have done that. That would have been fun. All right, so now we've got notes about how to potentially deal with the escape pod door. Had to disconnect the door control on the computer from backup power to fix the problem. He noted that disconnecting only the green and yellow wires and connecting the two current-carrying wires together would restore backup power. And as I recall, if I try to examine the wires, there are indeed 10 of them, and we can disconnect and reconnect them. All right. Now we get to see if you can solve my fiendish wire puzzle. All right, someone in chat, tell me what to do. Oh no, I've lost everyone in chat. They're thinking too hard about other things. Read the logbook again. Oh, nice. I collapsed the description the second time to give the main thing that you need to know, which is the notes in the margin with the green and yellow wires and the white and red wire and the red wire together. So disconnect, as Simon suggests, disconnect. Let's see what happens. Can I say disconnect green and yellow wires? Nope. I only understood you as far as wanting to disconnect those things. Younger Stephen, do better. Disconnect green. You pull the green wire loose. Disconnect yellow. There are no bugs, Bug Gwen says. Yes. Disconnect yellow. You pull the yellow wire loose from the wire. All right. If I scroll back up a little, green and yellow wires, and connecting the two current carrying wires, red and white wire and red wire. Let's see if I can connect red to striped. Ha-ha! I remember that. I thought I had done that as a convenience. So you unplug red, you unplug the stripy wire, you plug them in together. The screen next to the door flickers into life. So let's take a look at that screen. The screen's in data dump mode, which means it's showing... Wait, this can't be right. The screen claims that Node 4 is following one of the really old docking protocols. The transponder beacons are even active, the ones that once guided visiting vehicles to the antiquated docking port at the other end of Node 4. Don't you see? The Scow's navigation is just a veneer on top of the old software. I turn on the beacon, jettison the node with me on it, and pilot it away from the station. We send an emergency docking command and trip the original failsafes. The shuttle will follow, trying desperately to dock with the node instead of ramming the rest of the station. That way, if it's rigged to explode, it only takes out Node 4. You'd been shouting at Quentin, but it was Susan you had to convince. The station was observing radio silence, though when you try to remember why, you can't. You just can't. Ooh, all kinds of information now. So, the transponder beacons are active. It sounds like we moved a incoming explodey ship to follow Node 4, which we disconnected from the rest of the space station to save it. So, very heroic, us. Campbell asks, is that 9-letter limit on disconnect an informed thing? It might be. It's long enough ago since I tried this that might be what is going on, but I don't remember for sure. All right, so let's look at that screen again. The screen's in data dump mode. It's showing old status information about how Node 4 was following antiquated docking protocols. Also, you can tell that I spent a chunk of my professional life working on docking in space. So, write what you know. Oh, it occurs to me with the screen on, so we've got power to the door. The door to the escape pod is currently closed. Open door. You push open the doors button with one gloved finger. The escape pod door is opening. Your wrist readout flashes a warning about elevated blood pressure and respiration, but you can ignore it because you're about to get off this wrecked station. Then the door sticks after opening part way. I had forgotten I did that. Oh my gosh. Younger Stephen, you're a jerk. You are, as my daughter would say, trash. X door. The door to the escape pod is currently partially opened. Enter. Can I enter the door? Not until you get the door all the way open and that debris out of the way. A whole wodge of twisted metal jammed in front of the escape pod door like a ruined column. Okay, I missed that there was debris there. Is it described in the room and I just didn't notice it? Its door is part open and debris is wedged in front of it. I was just not being careful enough. All right, so we've got to get the door all the way open, and we've got to get the debris out of the way. Let's look at the screen. No information. All right. Let's look again. So now we've got, like using regular expressions, now we have two problems. So we've got to get the door all the way open, and we've got to get the debris out of its way. Open door. You stab at the button, but nothing happens. The computer screen flashes a brief message that quickly disappears. Insufficient power to fully open pod door. All right. So we need a power supply, and we need some way to get the debris out of the way. What happens if I pull the debris? You wrap your arms around the debris and tug, but you can't get enough leverage and zero gravity to shift the debris. Open the pod bay door, Hal. Yes. Looks like this is all just going to be a manual thing. So we need some way to pull the debris out of the way. We need another power source. So let's take a look around. First of all, check our inventory. Logbook, prize bar, flex spacesuit, length of chain, screwdriver. So we've been using the screwdriver to unscrew things, and that worked out pretty well. We've not used the length of chain for anything. We used the pry bar to get the chain out of the crack. Let's go back and look at the bicycle. So it's got a small wheel to which its pedals are attached. The small wheel has holes all along its perimeter. And there's nothing else in here. Let's go look at the sleeping rack. It has the empty spacesuit. Oh, can you attach chain to bike wheel? Let's find out. Attach chain to wheel. You clip the carabiner to one of the holes in the wheel and turn the pedals some to wind the chain on the wheel. You now have a chain that runs from the bike's wheel to your suit, forming a tether. All right. So that's clearly progress. The fact that I programmed it means it's relevant in some way. So we've got a chain clipped to our spacesuit, running from the spacesuit to the bicycle. What happens if I turn the pedals? You push on the bicycle pedals, making them and the small wheel turn. As you do, the chain begins to wind around the axle. You keep turning until the chain pulls taut, then you stop because the chain is pulling on you. Let's look at that chain. It's several meters long, very similar to a bike chain. Both ends sport carabiners. One end of the chain is looped around the bike's wheel. One end is clipped to your suit. All right. So, more progress. Thoughts about what to do next? One end of the... boy, I bet this was painful to program. Well done, younger me. Because there's the chain running from the suit to the bicycle to the fore part of the spacecraft, or the space station in Node 4. The station ends after if you're in a ring of jagged... All right, so... attach chain to debris. So I will need to go north to go 4, and then I'll need to go port by going west. Attach chain to debris. You loop the chain around the column of debris and clip the carabiner to secure it. So if I look, there is a chain. One end of the chain is looped around the column of debris. One end runs starboard. Well, I think at this point we've seen the pieces that we need to do. And that is turn the pedals. You push on the bicycle pedals, making them and the small wheel turn. As you do, the chain begins to wind around the axle. You keep turning until the chain pulls taut, then you turn some more until the chain slackens and the debris that used to be in front of the escape pod breaks into fragments and starts tumbling all around you. You bat random pieces of it out of the way, and it joins the rest of the debris filling the station. Take that, Archimedes. Your score has gone up by 1 point. All right, so we are almost home free. We've just got to get into the escape pod. So enter door, not until you get the door all the way open. If I push the button, two tying solutions in one game, you are a glutton for punishment. I do remember, because ropes and tying and things like that are so notoriously difficult in a text game like this that has a world model, by which I mean there's computer code behind the scenes keeping track of where things are located and what is in something and what is on something. Tying one thing to another is notoriously painful to code and keep straight. And I did it twice. So younger me, glutton for punishment. So if I push button to open the door, it says there's insufficient power, so we need another power source. So I'm not sure if I've seen a power source, so we're going to do the usual thing of looking at everything that we can look at. So we've got the door that is part opened, which doesn't have anything that we can help. There's the screen, which just shows the data dump information. The control panel, let's look at the panel. I think it just has wires. It just has the massive wires. Exercise equipment is starboard. The science experiments are aft. Let's go aft. While some of the station's science experiments, that's a thing I can examine. Was there something in that part about wires that talks about power? Let's go back and look at the wires. It was in the logbook. Read logbook. Normally the white and red wire and the red wire would run to the power source. So if we can find another power source, then we'll be able to put more power into the door and open it. So let's go back south. We looked at the science experiments. 19-inch racks complete with protruding handles, all bolted to the walls. A bunch of stuff about checklists. We have the logbooks, which we know because we got one. There's the button that opens the compartment. We don't need that anymore because we solved that puzzle. So we've got experiments with handles, everything bolted to this thing. Racks of equipment, inset storage compartments. Let's look at the station. We haven't looked at that. Space station or the end. Okay. So the computer isn't sure. The game doesn't know if I mean one of two objects, in this case, the space station or the end of the station. Let's look at both. There's yet another bug. Let's look at the end of the station then. Looking through the open end of the station, you see stars wheel by as the station spins and tumbles. At the edges of the station, you can see one of the station's batteries. That's right. I remember now when we first came in here, after a turn or two, it described the whole station rotating and said that you could see a battery outlined against the Earth. We need one of the station's batteries. Let's look at that battery. On one of the battery modules dotted around the exterior of the station, it's slightly larger than a loaf of bread. So it's on the exterior skin of the station. You can just see it from here, which means I can't reach it. You can't reach the battery from here, and there isn't anything to use as handholds near the edge. The only way you can reach the battery is to go for a spacewalk, and that's suicide without a tether. Now, we've got to figure out how to get to that battery. All right, so we need a way to tie ourselves in place. So we need a tether. Yes, I agree with Plasmoidia. We need a tether. So we looked at everything in here. I don't see a lot of use for the stick pad. Oh, wasn't that chain called a tether earlier? Yes. I don't see the chain. Oh, it's attached to the bike, which is over on this side. The length of the chain drifts here. One end of the chain is looped around the bike's wheel. So if I get the chain, you attach the chain's carabiner to one of your suit's D-rings. X chain. Several meters long, very similar to a bike chain. One end of the chain is looped around the bike's wheel. One end is clipped to your suit. So let's see if I can go for a spacewalk now. The length of chain isn't long enough to let you go aft. So because it's attached to the bicycle, which is one room or one section of the space station 4 from here. So I will go back there, get chain. You already have that. Unhook chain maybe? Attach you to debris. Disconnect chain from the bike's wheel, unchained. I figured it out. So yes, I can detach it from the bike. So I now have a length of chain. which if I examine it, says one of the chain is clipped to your suit. So that tells me I need something to attach it to. So Campbell suggested the debris, but the debris was all the way 4 as well, because it was over here next to the escape pod. I'm not even sure if it's around anymore. Yeah, it's scattered and removed from play. So we need something in one of these aft rooms to attach the chain to be a tether so that we could go around. All right, so in this room, we've got science experiments, racks of equipment, storage compartments, stick pad, and the gas line. So I'm curious. Attached to racks. All right, let's take a look at the racks. All the experiments are 19-inch racks, complete with protruding handles that are bolted into the wall. All right, that sounds promising. Attach chain to racks. You find a convenient handle on one of the experiments to clip one of the chain's carabiners onto. You now have a chain that runs from the experiments to your suit, forming a tether. Yes, so we are now tethered. Let's go for a spacewalk. The piloting programs in your head plan your route. You take a deep breath and grasp your tether tightly. Ready, steady, go, and you jump, trusting your modified instincts to keep you safe. You soar out into space before the tether pulls taut, and you land flat on the outside of your station, your boots grabbing hold. Outside Node 4. I guess we've technically escaped the space station, but not in any way that I want to have as a permanent solution. You cling carefully to the outside of Node 4. From here you can see that this is all there is, a small, ragged cylinder spinning as it tumbles around the Earth. There is no sign of the rest of the station. You can see a backup battery here. The chain runs back into the station, tethering you. For a moment, you consider unclipping the chain, kicking off of Node 4 and tumbling peacefully away. You giggle before you can stop yourself. I get the feeling Simon's going to need some serious therapy when all of this is done. So let's take a look at that battery. It's not just a battery, it's a space battery. The battery module is slightly larger than a loaf of bread and has 2 terminal slots where wires can be inserted. It's screwed into the station skin. Your suit's readout flashes. X readout. Plenty of oxygen, no integrity issues. The suit's mini dock warns you that your blood pressure and respiration have spiked. Oh, and you probably have a concussion. All right. Being outside in space probably will do that to you. A dark sense of humor. Yeah, I get the feeling this is how Simon copes with things. Let's get the battery. Let's spell battery properly and get the battery. You carefully unclip the screwdriver and remove the screws from around the battery. You watch the screws float off into space and wonder if they'll eventually embed themselves in some random satellite. Simon, you are the worst astronaut. Do not create orbital debris. You then carefully lift the battery and tuck it under one arm. And our score has gone up. I do like how, to simplify the game, I kept getting rid of things, but that meant that astronaut Simon is tossing all this kind of debris around, causing problems. Like, you don't want even screws running around in orbit, because if they hit something else, they will puncture right through it. So let's, using get instead of take. He is concussed, that's true, Campbell says. Let's enter station. Getting back inside is a little trickier than leaping outside, but it's nothing you and your fancy head full of kinematic equations can't handle. Physics talk. All right, so we are back in the station. We have the battery. Let's go north to where the escape pod is. So we've got the battery. It has 2 terminal slots where wires can be inserted. So as I recall, so we've got everything set up properly, except the red wire is plugged into the white and red striped wire, as it says down here. And then let me double check. If I look back at the logbook, normally the white and red wire and the red wire would run to the power source. So attach white and red wire to battery. Not with the stick pad. Younger Stephen, you should have disambiguated that better. Unstick white and red. You detach the white and red striped wire from the stick pad. Put white and red in battery, maybe? You disconnect the white and red striped wire from the red wire. The screen next to the door turns off, so we've disconnected it from station power. You plug the white and red striped wire into the battery's terminal slot. Maybe I'll try plug. The game is sort of hinting that is a reasonable thing to do. Plug red into battery. You plug the red wire into the battery's terminal slot. The screen next to the door returns to life, though it's so bright that you might be able to get a tan from it. More importantly, the pod door opens fully. That may have just voided your warranty. And our score has gone up. All right, enter pod. Gathering the chain as you go. On board the Pred Piatti. The converted Pred Piatti is boxy, held together by far too many bolts, and is one of the best things you've ever seen. You wish you could hug it. It's dark though, no power is running to the pod. There's a large button labeled Escape. You also wish you could hug the nameless engineer who made this so simple to operate. Next to the button is the pod's touchscreen. And then we've got the chain. I'm guessing nothing will happen here, but let's give it a try. Push Escape. You press the Escape button ready to be on your way. Nothing happens. Damn it, the computer must not have powered up the pod. You'll have to fiddle with the computer's touchscreen to have the computer power up the pod. This is just like one endless complication after another. I feel so bad for Simon. So let's look at the touch screen. The screen is showing a password prompt and a keyboard. Password locked? The station computers are never password locked. No, wait, Quentin had to turn on password protection a few hours ago. He'd set it to the crew's initials with the names in reverse rank order. It would make your security officer weep hot tears of anger if he knew. Radio silence. Password protection. Oh no. Some idiot must have decided it was time for a shooting war. And now you remember, the automated cargo supply shuttle that didn't respond to repeated hails. The orbital plot that showed the scow headed for the middle of the station. The realization that someone was worried about the UK holding the high ground and had decided to blow up the station. I can tell I wrote this before Brexit. The desperate gamble that you could divert the supply shuttle away from the rest of the station. You've got to get out of here soon before there's no one left in orbit to pick you up. All right. Plasmoidea suggests you might want to disconnect the chain. That does seem like a bad thing to keep wearing if I'm going to get out. So disconnect chain. Drop chain maybe? You leave it floating. We'll see if this works or not. I may have to gather it outside of the station, or sorry, outside of the escape pod, depending on how clever I was. All right. So let's look at the screen again. Look for a post-it note in a closed desk drawer with the password on it, Campbell says. Quentin set the password to the crew's initials with the names in reverse rank order. So we need the crew's initials, and we need to know their rank. I do remember when I was designing this, I wrote down every cliched escape room puzzle I could think of, from wires that you had to connect up to codes that you had to use. So this is the code puzzle that you have to have in an escape room game just by, I think that's international law that you have to have one. All right, anyone know where we can find the names and the rank? The name should be in the, X logbook, yes. X logbook. On the cover are the names of everyone in order of rank. Susan Harrison, Simon Mayhill, Quentin Davies, and Patricia Morrison. So I have to do them in reverse order. So let's see, type, that would be Patricia Morrison, Quentin Davies, Simon Mayhill, Susan Harrison. On screen. The screen clears and diagnostic messages start scrolling up the display. You scan them, watching as the computer learns what you already know about Node 4. It then decides to fully power up the escape pod, and our score went up. So now, push escape. The pod door closes. Sorry, chain! And the entire craft shakes as it kicks off of the ruined station. The pod reorients, and for a moment you see what's left of Node 4, looking like the discarded end of a Christmas cracker, before it moves out of view. You strap into the seat and close your eyes. Is it okay to sleep with a concussion, or should you stay awake? It's like the old debate about whether you feed a cold or a fever. You must have been sleeping because the warble of an alarm jolts you awake. The pods picked up something moving towards you. You'd be more frantic, but you appear to have used up your daily supply of adrenaline already. Then the IFF, identify friend or foe, module kicks in and identifies the craft as a friend. Simon, that had better be you in there. Suze, it's Suze. You're saved. we have escaped Node 4. And there are the 8 points that we got for freeing ourselves from the struts at the beginning of the game, for getting the chain from the crack, for getting the logbook out of the compartment, removing the debris, getting the battery, opening the escape pod door all the way, restoring power, and escaping. Good game, everyone. And you have solved my puzzle. All right. Well, thank you very much for helping me out with that, everyone. That was just a lot of fun. So I will be thinking about games that we can do next time that have a similar kind of short, puzzly approach. And Jim, it's okay. You don't have to come on time. It's still good. So I will probably tweet out suggestions. If you've got ideas of games that I could try next week, let me know. And everyone have a very good Saturday. See you next time.